Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman, and this is the Roberts Hope Diamond, shaped by Robert Weiner of Roberts Surfboards, Surfing Magazine Shaper of the Year, and talk a little bit about this board and also how it felt on the water. We just had a nice 3-day swell, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Robert in town, and while the entire rest of the Roberts quiver was out on the water during demos, I actually spent a lot of time surfing this board because it was the only board left on the beach. So got a lot of great things to say about it, but first let's talk about where this board came from. Robert was getting a lot of custom order requests for larger white diamond 2s. So 6'6", 6'8", 7'0", 7'2", 7'4s, even as big as 7'6s. And when you scale a white diamond 2 on the computer and then also like the computer shape it and then hand shapes it, you end up with a really deep single concave. And a lot of times you can't scale a certain design all the way big or all the way small because you run into some conflicts in the design, and that was one of the big ones on the white diamond 2 is when you started making bigger ones, the concave started getting too deep in the center of the board, and so it created too much lift underneath the front foot, and it also made the board very hard to turn rail to rail because there was so much concave that it was actually fighting the surfer trying to turn it rail to rail. So in this board, in the Hope Diamond, obviously scaling the length, the width, and the thickness, but making a shallower single concave through the middle that runs into a shallower double and then V out the back were the big changes in that design as they scaled it into larger sizes. So who is this board for? This board is for surfers that are either riding longboards and saying, I never ever thought I would ever ride a shortboard, or if you're riding a shortboard and the board is becoming too small, you're not spending enough time in the water, you want something that's just easier to surf but still has performance, this is a really good board to look at. The sensations of surfing this board, it's really easy to say like, hey, this is a big white diamond 2, but when you look at this board, obviously it looks like a white diamond 2, and we'll even show you a photo of a white diamond 2 next to this board. You can see it's like virtually identical to the board, but how does it feel? I think that's the big thing that people want to know. So personally, surfing longboards a lot myself. I have a 9-footer that I surf a lot. I have a 9.6 that I surf a lot. I even have a 12-foot longboard that I surf a lot. So the sensation of going to this board from those boards, it has a very fast paddle speed through the water. I would say just as fast as the longboards in choppy conditions. The big reason why it can go so fast is because it has a sleeker outline, and you're not pushing that big round nose through all the chop or through a lot of moving water that would cause it to bounce. So whatever momentum that you get up, you hold it because of that narrow nose and the long sleek width on this board compared to a longboard. So a lot of times the people that are on a longboard, they say, I'm never going to go to a shortboard because it's just too much extra work. This board is literally no extra work compared to a longboard. If anything, if there's any kind of bump in the water or current or like a lot of moving water, this board could actually be easier just because it paddles through that without banging and slapping. Also, compared to a longboard, you do not lose your wave count. So when I was surfing this board, I was literally like in the same realm of wave count, probably even more made waves than my longboard because it's easier to drop into a steeper wave on this board, but you don't lose wave count when you go to this board. The next thing we'll talk about is you can duck dive this board. Myself, I find like my 9.6, I have to turtle it. My 9-footer, I could do like a cheater duck dive. I can get it deep enough to get underneath most white waters. This board, with the right technique and really getting the board down and then push down, you can get it underneath the white water and make positive ground out through the lineup where on your longboard you definitely could not. So an 150-pound person's laughing at me right now saying that there's no way that they could ever duck dive a 7.2, but if you're a bigger surfer and you know how to duck dive boards, you can duck dive it significantly better than you can on your 9-foot plus board and make way out there. When you're dropping into the wave, the Hope has the signature Roberts flip in the front of the board, and then also that really nice rolled rail. And this is where another place where this really stands out and differentiates itself from your longboard is that you can do late drops, and the board isn't going to catch its nose and pole vault you over the front. One, because it's shorter. Obviously, it's if this is a 7.2, it's over 1.5 feet shorter than a 9-footer. But also because it's got a narrower nose this way, and then also because of that flip and because of the rolled rail, it's you could basically make hero drops on this thing compared to your longboard and not stick the nose and get ejected. So if you're catching as many waves, you're dropping in deeper, you're not hooking the nose. It's all like, you know, positive information for a longboarder. Once you're up on the wave, this board could generate a lot of speed. It's got a nice long rail line for pushing against in those turns, like similar to how you feel on your longboard. But it's much faster and much livelier because of the concave through it and because of that nice big diamond tail and also the narrow nose. So when you go to cut back, you're not having to turn all of that bulk that's in the front of your fun board or the front of your longboard, because it's all been shaved off the board, and because you have that double concave in the back to a V in the back to the diamond tail, everything is a lot quicker off the top. It's much more pivotal off the top than your longboard, and you're not throwing around as much weight. Looking at the fins on this board, it's set up as a 5-fin, and so we can look a little bit at the fin cluster specifically. It's set up as a five-fin board. You can run it either quad, which is the way I have it set up, or you can run it tri-fin. First of all, talking about fins, especially for bigger surfers on a board like this, is that you want to have good fins on this board. I mean, the board comes stock with plastic fins, and a lot of people will only ever use those, but big surfers tend to push big fins really hard. And so what happens is that the plastic fin flexes when you push it, and then it never flexes back because it just doesn't have the material in it to do that. So you end up with a real wish-washy feeling. The board feels great going straight, but like whenever you're loading it, you don't get that spring out of the turns. So these fins that we have in here, this is a Roberts 5-fin set from Futures, and it's set up as a quad. Right now, we surf this board both tri and quad. It was faster in the smaller surf as a quad when you're really pumping it down the line. It did seem to release, it had a little bit more of a pivotal release off the top and the bottom if you were riding it as a thruster. But it did work in both of those setups. As long as you have the right size fin for how big you are, and as long as you have a good solid like fiberglass fin or a honeycomb fiberglass fin, as opposed to a plastic fin, you're gonna get great performance. But what I found in both this board and the White Diamond 2 is it's got a great turn. Like you drop in, it's real positive on the drops because of that nose rocker and the rolled rails. Great speed down the line, but the turns on this thing with the double concave and the V out the back, it's really pivotal off the top. It really uses the bottom shape in the back half of the board to help you get off the top of the wave quick and then get back down into it. So down the line's great. With that long rail line, you can make really almost unmakeable sections just because you get so much drive out of the rail of the board, and then get down the line and being able to snap it off the whitewater, do off the tops quite a bit faster than you would on your longboard, or that you wouldn't even try on your longboard. So if you're right now like on a board that's too short and you're looking for something bigger, this board starting at 6.6 and going up into the 7s is a great board to check out. And if you're in your longboard and you're like, hey, I used to surf shortboards when I was a kid, but there's no way I can do it now, this is definitely a board to check out. It's a great board. It's a high performance board, and it feels really good the more input that you put into it, but it's not inaccessible to a surfer that hasn't surfed a point and nose board in a long time or forever. You can literally get on it and the very first day start to notice a lot about what we're talking about in this video. So Roberts Hope Diamond, awesome board. Stoked to have checked it out. At 56 liters, it's 14 liters bigger than my biggest board, but surfing in all 3 days, I was stoked every part of the session, full permagrin, because you're just catching waves and rocketing down the line. Check it out, the Robert Hope Diamond.